Hey, all, and welcome back to the Playmakers Corner podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Kodey Stoffer.
And I'm your other co-host, Simon Villanos, a.k.a. Coach V.
And today we are going to be talking about one of the deepest positions in Colorado that is always a very deep position here on episode 98, talking about the top 5 class of 2022 running backs here in the Rocky Mountain State here. And, I think that this is going to be a very exciting episode with some great playmakers. And Simon and I, we looked through a lot of guys' film. We had a very extensive list. I mean, when we first started this list, I want to say there was close to 30 names on here, just because there's that many backs that put up productive numbers and got in the end zone and, made plays, seeing as that in Colorado, running the ball is an identity for a lot of teams. So it was no surprise that we had a lot to kind of whittle through. And along the way, we kind of also decided that we're going to do another top 5 list for a position that also runs the ball, but is not quite a running back. So stay tuned for that. But without further ado, Simon, do you want to talk about, our number 5 running back here who, we have rubrics for based off of vision, footwork, receiving capabilities, power, explosiveness, agility / change of direction, speed, balance, and body control, blocking, tackle breaking / strength, and acceleration. Add all those up, and who do you get here at number 5 in the senior class for running back, Simon?
Boom. So at number 5, the number 5 ranked senior running back here in the state of Colorado, so class of 2022, is TCA's very own Cade Palmer. We've talked about this kid a lot. Talked about him on our end of the year award shows. He did win 2A Offensive Playmaker of the Year for us. Go ahead and check out that episode if you want. That is episode 95. And so let me kind of break down his stats here. He has been starting since his sophomore year. His sophomore year, he was extremely impressive. And obviously every year since then, he's been impressive. Career-wise, he has 4,018 rushing yards on 430 carries. So he's averaging basically 9 yards a carry, which is absolutely insane. 54 career rushing touchdowns, and then he does have 2 receiving touchdowns, if I'm not mistaken here. He has been basically the workhorse for TCA here for the last 3 years. Basically single-handedly also brought them to state last year during the COVID year, and then this year he was kind of leading that backfield there. Just in case you didn't know who Cade Palmer was, just wanted to put some respect on his name as a senior. I'm going to go ahead and put these stats out there. He did have 1,541 rushing yards and 23 rushing touchdowns on only 123 carries, which is actually half of the carries he got his sophomore year. So just keep that in mind. On only 123 carries, he was able to do that much damage. But let me talk about Cade Palmer and his brand of football. Basically, first off, I think he has very good vision. Vision, at least how I break it down, is not only the ability to see, where you got cut back and where the hole is, but it's also the ability to see, all right, what blocks could I set up with my jukes and moves and all that so that I can get more yards here. And Cade Palmer is almost a master at that, man. Like, there are times where you could definitely see, if you're sitting from afar, you could see the lane or the blocks that he has to set up. At least, if you're a former football player, you could see that. And he does it, time after time again. He works himself up to the next level and to the next level until he's scoring a touchdown. And that's why he's able to get so many 50-plus yard rushing touchdowns, basically, because he's able to see, almost into the future and set up blocks here and there. His change of direction for somebody at his size, at least this is what I'm going off of Max. Yeah, at 6'2", 195, he has really good change of direction. For somebody at his size to move like that, that's D1, and he is going D1. He is going to Air Force, by the way. So just keep that in mind. And so that's kind of a big part of his game. He's able to see his blocks through and whatnot and set them up and do his thing. And that's why he's kind of a home run hitter, on this 2A level, and will probably be a home run hitter on the next level as well. I also want to put some respect, on his footwork. Very smooth. Obviously, if you're going to be making all these cuts, you got to have pretty crisp footwork. He has it, acceleration is pretty solid for me. I have him at an 8.7 out of 10. Should I talk about how rankings and all that go, by the way, or ratings go?
Yeah, you can explain our 1 through 10 system real quick if you'd like. I think that's a good thing to do.
I'll do it real quick. Whenever we do film breakdowns, this is what we're going to go by. We're going to go by rubrics from now on, just so that you, the listeners, know kind of what's going through our heads. But basically, we have 10 categories here, so it gives us a rating out of 100. So kind of think Madden and all that. I'm a former teacher, so this is how I set up this part of the rubric. But basically, if you get a 1 to 3, it's not good. Your skill needs improvement. Should be a priority for the player to work on in the off season. Is probably something that you could get benched over. If we give you a rating 4 to 6 in any of the skill levels, that's about average. Your skill isn't horrible, but on a bad day, it's definitely below average. At best, it's maybe a little bit above average. So that's where that is. If you get a 7 to 8, think that's comparable to a 2-star, 3-star talent. So if we give you a 7 to 8 rating, that's kind of the level 2-star or 3-star would be at. 8 to 9, that's 3-star to 4-star. There's a lot of things to think about there. That could be a pretty wide scale in general from 8 to 9. So we do our best there. But if you get anywhere from an 8.5 to 9, then you're more of a 4-star. 8 to 8.5, or 8 to 8.49, I guess, is like a 3-star. And then 9 to 10, that's elite. For you to get a 10, which is basically impossible in any of these skill levels, basically that means that skill that we're talking about is something that could translate to the NFL right now. As in, as a kid, you could, perform the skill on an NFL type of level, which is extremely hard. But more so 4-star, 5-star. So just keep that in mind. So boom, there you go. Just keep all that in mind. We'll probably post our rubric results somewhere, maybe on our website. So there you go. But anyways, K Palmer, I kind of have him rated as more of a 3-star, high 4-star as far as, footwork and vision goes there. So just keep that in mind. K Palmer is not rated right now, but I think a 3-star would be very appropriate there. Now, before I take everything, Kodey, do you have anything else you want to add on here as far as strengths go before you talk about areas of improvement?
Yeah, sure thing. So I'd say that the highest rated things for me with Cade were, just his overall acceleration. I wouldn't say that he's, drop off the fastest guy on this list, but I would say that he does get up to speed very quickly. And some guys on this list, and a lot better than a lot of guys who just narrowly missed this list. It came down to that acceleration and just his agility and ability to change direction. I did give that an 8.7, and in turn with that, I think that his footwork has a lot to do with his ability to change direction that well. So his footwork and agility / change of direction kind of mirrored each other in the 8.7 category, and that's where I think he is most elite. But other than that, Simon, you think I could take it away on some areas of improvement here for Cade?
Yeah, go for it.
Perfect. So one of the hardest scales for me to grade here, just in general, has been blocking. A lot of you running backs don't put blocking film on there when you definitely should, especially in this, evolving game of football that passes the ball so much. You need to be able to pass block here. And, I gave him a decent rating because I think that he has a great frame, and I think that there is some ability to block, but I definitely think that he needs improvement in that area. And then I think the next lowest one for me was his receiving capabilities. He's, I would say, probably the worst receiving back on this top 5 list out of the guys who did make it, and something that he needs to work on. I don't see him in his film, running different routes or different kind of receiving plays. And basically had to refer to his defensive film for the most part for his positive points on his receiving for the most part. And then, I think that he could always get stronger. He does show ability to carry some guys for a little bit, but, I think that if he fills out his frame just a little bit more, maybe even if it's another like 5 or 10 pounds and he's able to maintain his speed, then I think he could be very dangerous, because I think a lot of his ability to carry people just comes from his acceleration and explosiveness rather than just his raw strength is kind of where I was at with Cade Palmer in areas of improvement. I think most of this can just be solved by hitting the weight room for the most part for Cade. And then obviously, any 7-on-7 work that he can get, or even just doing some drills with wide receivers at times I think that he'll be able to pick all of these things up pretty quickly heading to that next level. Simon, what do you think of, those areas of improvement? Do you have any other areas of improvement? And do you really see these as major concerns heading forward?
Well, short answers, though. I don't think it's major concerns moving forward. I think in general, he's not like an elite athlete, I would say. I think he's a very good to good athlete, but he's not like somebody that's like a Q Jones, right? He's going to outrun everyone and out-hit everyone, I think part of the reason why he's able to kind of shed tackles and all that so well is because he is a bigger dude at 6'2", basically 200 pounds, and for somebody to move at that speed, especially on the two-way level, that's causes a lot of problems. Right? It definitely causes a lot of problems for a lot of defenders. So there's no surprises there, right? He should be able to dominate physically. Now, he is moving a step up. He's going to be playing D1 ball, especially for Air Force. We all know about the run game. It's pretty good. They did win their bowl game, I'm pretty sure, too, by the way. And so I think they will get him conditionally up to snuff. Personally, top end speed-wise, I kind of have him rated at an 8.5. It's solid enough. Like, it could get the job done if he hits the right holes, on the next level. Like, he could definitely break off maybe a 50 or 60 yarder, 50 or 60 yard touchdown, 3 or 4 times a season if he's like really on top of it. But other than that, I think I see him more as a guy that could be really good in short yardage, especially if he gets stronger. And I think he can put on a little bit more weight, maybe even get to the 210, 215 range and be able to move as well as he does right now. I think he could be extremely dangerous on the next level. But like I said, there is definitely a little bit of a cap here. He does have a lot of very good skills. Footwork I love. Vision I love as well. That's his highest rating for me right now, actually, at a 9 out of 10. So basically a 4-star level, which I absolutely love. And then, you have a lot of other things that are up there as well. I do agree. Blocking could probably be better. I didn't see a lot of it. Not that they used him a lot because TCA didn't pass the ball a whole lot or, run the ball a lot with him blocking. But, he does have a good frame at 6'2", 200. I mean, shoot, figure it out. There are linebackers at your size, too, maybe even smaller. So I think he can dominate those guys if he is asked to do that, or at least do a solid job. Yeah, so but I think we're starting off this list very strong with Cade Palmer here, D1 guy. So that kind of sets the tone for this. And so with that being said, Kodey, what's your outlook for Cade Palmer here? He's going to be at Air Force, playing with his older brother, Alec Falk, I think our number 2 rated offensive tackle in the class of 2022 will be joining him as well from Palmer Ridge. And so, Air Force, they've been building these last couple of years, building their line, snagging some guys here and there, and snagging some really good Colorado players as well. But, where do you think Cade Palmer kind of lands here, and how does his collegiate career look like moving forward?
Yeah, so, looking at this Air Force depth chart right now, they only have 2 running backs on the depth chart right now, one being a junior, one being a sophomore. So I wouldn't put it past Air Force to potentially not put a red shirt on Cade Palmer here. Now, I'm not saying he's going to be getting starter level carries as a freshman, but I think it's possible to see him on the field as a true freshman. We've seen opportunities and learned a little bit from some of these guys from our past who, skill position players. I feel like they have a shorter path to the field than linemen do at times. And, I think Cade Palmer won't be an exception there. And, even if he does redshirt, I still see him getting carries in his first year, whether that's as a true freshman or whether that's as a redshirt freshman. I see him getting carries in that first year, honestly. I think he's going to ball out. I mean, Air Force has a, style of football that emphasizes running, and, they've been a lot more successful over these past couple of years. I think Cade Palmer should be happy to be excited about that, and I think that Air Force should be stoked to have him as a part of that, honestly. That's kind of where I stand with it. Simon, you are down in the Springs. You know Cade a lot better than I do. You've seen him live more than I have. Would you say that my assessment of that could come to fruition?
Yeah, I think it's completely possible that he gets snaps as a freshman, not even special teams, but maybe even getting into rotation here and there, I think that's extremely possible for him. Like I said, he's a very well-rounded athlete, and so it's kind of hard to be like, let's see what the freshman got. Let's see if his skills translate to the D1 level of college football. And so I think that's something that they might test out early on, and then we'll kind of see how he performs from there. But, as far as like just kind of being the complete package as far as height goes, athleticism, I mean, if we're grading just off of that, he's probably one of the best guys here. I think he's the tallest back on this list, and also maybe the second heaviest, really close to the heaviest on this list as well. So, I mean, when you have a guy like that, you only have two guys on your depth chart right now. I'm sure they recruited a lot of other guys and have other guys coming through the transfer portal or whatever. But, you kind of want to see what you have in your freshmen, right? And I believe you can play or get into 2 or 3 games before you redshirt. But if you get into more than that, then you can't redshirt anymore. So just keep that in mind, And so I wouldn't be surprised if they're like, all right, let's see if we could get him some carries early on in the season before we redshirt him, or get him some carries, and that might decide whether we redshirt him or not. So, yeah, I think that's extremely fair. Cade Palmer, he's a good one out there. They're getting a steal, honestly, in Cade Palmer. Especially coming off a senior year where he wasn't given that many carries, only 100 carries, which is, by the way, I think only 30 more carries than he got than last year, and he played in like 4 or 5 less games. That's a pretty big deal. You got a guy that doesn't have a lot of wear and tear on him. So, there you go. But Kodey, do you want to say what your final grade was for Cade Palmer here? You could say a letter grade too.
Yeah, my final grade was basically a C.
Okay.
Just a straight up C for Cade Palmer here. I think that's fair. I think he's a 3-star recruit. I think that I could very well have seen him playing, at a CSU, definitely at a UNC, or, anywhere FCS. And I think plenty of places FBS would have been lucky to have Cade Palmer on their roster, honestly. So, kudos to Air Force for, like you said, getting an absolute steal here. And, it helps that their ear is to the ground right here in Colorado Springs. They've been doing a great job recruiting in Colorado Springs, probably better than any other school in the state, if I have to be honest. That's going to help them probably continue their dominance for the next few years. That's my final take on TCA's Cade Palmer.
Boom, there you go. I had him rated at a C+, just below a B, but I still think he's a 3-star, maybe mid to lower 3-star. 3-star is pretty. There's a lot of them, but there's a pretty big range there. So there you go there. But we're gonna go ahead and take a break before we talk about our number 4 running back in the class of 2022 here in the state of Colorado. Coming up next. What's good, y'all? Welcome back to the Playmakers Corner podcast. I'm your host, Simon Villanos, and we're talking running backs here in the state of Colorado, class of 2022. And we already know this is going to shock you, so we're just going to rip off the Band-Aid. Coming in at number 4 with the same number of stars he has, 4-star running back Gavin Sawchuk, committed to Oklahoma. He is our number 4 ranked running back in the class of 2022 out of Valor Christian High School. I'm going to talk about the good things here, some of the reasons why he is rated as a 4-star running back. Now, Gavin Sawchuk is at 5'11", 185. He might be a little bit heavier. When we saw him at that media day, he did look a little bit lean, so I could even give him 200 if you really want there. And so right away, frame, he is up there. I think the biggest thing I like about Gavin Sawchuk is probably his combination of speed and power. His highest rating right here, I have him at a 9 as far as power and explosiveness go. Even though he's only 5'11", 185, or at least that's what he's listed at, he could hit, right? And he could break some tackles as well. He plays a little bit bigger than what his size is, or at least what it's listed, And plus, he has some pretty decent speed to go along with that. And, Valor Christian, they love giving him the ball. He was basically their offense for a lot of this season, probably for a good majority of their season. And he was the workhorse for a reason. He's a good athlete that has a good balance between that power, between that speed. I had his speed at around 8, 6 or 7. I think his top end speed may not be the greatest, but it's still up there. It's still D1, and that's obvious. And so I think that blend is the biggest reason why he did get rated at a 4-star. His acceleration is right after for me at an 8.7. So, those are all 4-star ratings, at least for me, Look, I think he's kind of the full package. For Valor Christian. He's a guy that could carry the ball a lot of times, and he's just going to wear down defenses just by ramming into you like 20 to 30 times a game, which is what Valor did, And I think something that we didn't put down here as a rating is probably stamina, because I would say his stamina is definitely up there as well, because he just gets after it. Now, they did manage some of his carries here in his senior season, and last year as well, giving some carries to his brother, his younger brother, and then I think some to the quarterback as well. But, for the most part, they did use him a lot. And, he was basically fresh from first to fourth quarter. He would just continuously, beat you down. And, honestly, he is, he's somebody that is just a very, very good athlete. So, yeah, but that's why, obviously he was going to make this list. So there you go. But Kodey, do you want to talk about why he's maybe not ranked at least at least higher than 4 here?
Well, I'm going to talk about my strengths for him real quick. He had the highest rating from me in power/explosiveness at a 9.2. And as far as balance and body control, I also gave him a 9. I think that he's going to excel very well, in the system that he's heading to. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in Outlook because it gets me excited as an Oklahoma fan. But anyways, he rated very, very high in some areas like tackle breaking / strength. I give him an 8.9. In footwork, I also gave him an 8.9. And like you said, his speed is also very solid and whatnot. But without further ado, we are going to talk about some areas that, might impress or not impress, but might shock some people in certain ways. So one thing I will say is, this list, Playmakers Corner in general, we value versatility, and we just have not seen versatility as a part of Gavin Sawchuk's arsenal in his receiving game. Most of it is screens and swing passes, and not a lot of them really jump off of the film to you. So, I think he's a solid enough receiver. I think he can catch enough passes, but it's not as good as anybody else that's further up on this list. Just straightforward, everybody on this list from this point forward has ran multiple routes out of the slot and has made incredible wow catches, in their film and against all kinds of opponents. So there's that. I also want to say that, I think his baseline speed is good. I don't think he gets there very quickly. I think his acceleration is the worst in this top 5 list. I think that it takes him a minute to kick into gear, honestly. And you can kind of see that against any range of competition. And lastly, out of everyone on this list, his agility / ability to change direction is the lowest out of these top 5 guys. I think that in order for him to change direction, at least crossfield is a great reference for this, because all of these guys on this list, they eventually cut back across the entire field, right? Whenever Gavin does it, it feels like he comes to a complete stop, and it feels like everything slows down whenever he does do that. So I pinged him pretty hard there in his agility / change of direction. I still think it's 3-star quality just because he is able to change direction, and he does make some pretty solid cuts and jukes as well. That is something that helps him out pretty significantly here. And I actually had him rated tied for second, but we're talking composite score and overall versatility. So that's where Gavin kind of slips behind some of these other guys here. And, I am going to acknowledge that he is one of the highest rated running backs in the country, but we're looking for an all-around guy. And when we compare it to somebody else who we did a breakdown of who's just above him, we feel that he's significantly more well-rounded than Gavin here. But overall, Gavin, he's a great hammer to a nail kind of running back, and he will, succeed in the system he's heading to. But before I talk about outlook, I just want to toss it back to Simon, because Simon, you've been on this this crusade here for about a year. So do you want to kind of take me through your thoughts as we noticed him go from 4 to 3 stars after last season, and you were calling it last season? You kind of want to talk about that as well as how this season impacted your view here of Gavin Sawchuk?
Yeah, first off, I know what a 4-star running back looks like. I grew up in Texas, so there you go. We have like a million 4-star running backs if you want to go there. Even this year, as well. I still got homies down there. They still send me film of their guys. And so I know what a 4-star running back looks like. To me, Gavin Sawchuk, he just didn't look like a 4-star guy, first off. He – oh, my gosh. Where should I start? Look. It's never a good thing where you're doing research on like linebackers, safeties, corners, whatever, and you're on a lot of people's like highlight reels. And I get it, they want to be like, a lot of kids want to put on their highlight reel like, oh yeah, I got a good tackle against, a 4-star or an Oklahoma recruit. Like that's not like abnormal, for sure. But it's the way some of those highlights went. And I get it. It was his junior year, but like the thing is, you can't be embarrassed that many times. Look it up. Look up Jackson Muma. Look up Bo Frailer. And I get it. Bo, he's doing his thing with Iowa State as a freshman starting. Jackson Muma, where's he at? Black Hill State? It's like a D2.
Sioux Falls,
sorry. That's in the Dakotas. But yeah, still though, D2. And then all these other guys, like, that's just never a good thing. And so right away, before I did any research, that was kind of a red flag. Look, like I said, I've seen 4-star guys. Unless you're getting blown up by a fellow 4-star or 3-star, at least 3-star linebacker, come on now. You can't have that. But like I said, his power and explosiveness was still rated pretty high. It was his highest rating after everything was said and done. I think the thing I was the most, down on after looking at all of his film, after looking at all those state games, especially when he's playing other D1 talent, was his ability and change of direction. It was not good. It was not as good as I would think it would be for a 4-star guy. He's just stiff. There are a lot of running backs, not even on this top 5, in our honorable mentions as well, that are not as stiff as Gavin Sawchuk. And I get it that his running style is a little bit more brutal. That's fine. My running style is a little bit more brutal. At the end of the day, I'm evaluating you against like a bunch of other guys nationally as I feel like, should be fit. And surprisingly enough, we have evaluated guys nationally that are right up there with Gavin Sawchuk. So right now, at least according to 24/7 Sports Composite, Gavin Sawchuk is the number 5 running back in the entire country. Congratulations, that's great. We have done breakdowns on the number 4 guy right above him, Nicholas Singleton from Governor Mifflin at Penn State. You know, we were really high on him. I personally did a breakdown on Malik Brown, was committed to Oklahoma, obviously flipped over to USC. You know, he's a 5-star guy. He's ranked 2, only 3 spots ahead of Gavin there. I think both of those guys are much better than Gavin Sawchuk. Their agility, ability to change directions is not as bad as Gavin Sawchuk, and that's a big deal because watching those Cherry Creek games, obviously they have great athletes in Arden Walker, Blake Purchase, Angelo Petrides, the Zelinskas brothers, all of them, both of them, Miles Purchase, Al Ashford, all those guys, right? I understand that, but that's D1 talent. On the next level, I mean, D1 teams are all made up of D1 talent, surprisingly. If you can't do if you're basically neutralized from sideline to sideline going up against D1 talent, then are you really a D1 talent? You know what I'm saying? I don't think he could get the best of a lot of those guys, and he didn't. That's why, Cherry Creek basically scored, a combined 0 points in Valor Christian scored a combined 0 points in 2 straight state championship games, Cody? Or did they score 1 touchdown his junior year?
No, it was blank both years.
That's embarrassing. I'm going to be honest with you. We talk about signature games, but also you could have games that define where your rating is. And personally, that's not good. That is not good at all. What that tells me is that you're you're a north and south runner, and that's fine, but I mean, unless you get lucky or unless you're just built like that and you could run over all these D1 guys, I don't know. A 4-star guy is a guy like Leonard Fournette, in my opinion. Well, he was a 5-star guy. But like Leonard Fournette, maybe a little bit less athletic, I think that's kind of where I'm at there as far as 4 stars go with the running backs. And so that's just me. I'm very critical of him from sideline to sideline. That's a pretty big thing. Speed-wise, it's all right. Like he could maybe, break off a couple of big gains here, but he's no Malik Brown, who's a home run hitter every single time he touches the ball. I would say maybe like 1 out of 6 or 7 times he could get out there, And then another thing I wasn't a big fan of was his vision. And Valor Christian's line is really good. Caden Parrish, his center, number 2 rated interior lineman in this class, At least that's how me and Mason rated it. Jake Mikula, the left tackle, I want to say, or Mikula, sorry, number 1 rated tackle by far, extremely great run blocker. And then all the other guys who aren't seniors are probably rated up there as well. If you can't run behind that line that is basically made up of, D1 and D2 talent, I mean, I don't know what to tell you. And obviously he was able to do that, which is why he was able to break Christian McCaffrey's record. But, obviously on a ton more carries there. And so personally, versatility is a big thing. Like Cody said, receiving's not all that. I'm not going to talk about that. But as far as athleticism goes, I don't think he has the athleticism of a 4-star back. I think he's more appropriately a 3-star back. So, boom. There you go. Cody, he's committed to Oklahoma, or at least he hasn't said otherwise, right? What's his outlook? You tell me. If he goes to Oklahoma still.
Well, no. I feel like he's definitely going to Oklahoma because on December 5th, 2021, so this was after, I'm pretty sure this is after the championship game. This is after the Lincoln Riley move, everything, after he was asked about it at Media Day and, deflected it. He posted, for those who, for our of-age audience who has seen Wolf of Wall Street, if you're one of our middle school listeners, probably don't watch that movie. It's not for you. But anyways, I'm not here to parent. I'm here to talk about his tweet. He tweeted Boomer Sooner and the scene from Wolf of Wall Street where he says, I'm not leaving. So he is, it sounds like he's hard committed to Oklahoma, for sure, despite the change. I think that, I kind of like his outlook here too, and I think that out of all of these guys here, he actually has the best tools and path potentially to the NFL. And what I mean by that, obviously, for those who don't know, he was recruited by DeMarco Murray, former OU guy who did go to the NFL, played for the Cowboys and the Titans, I think were the only teams that he played for. He might have played for another one. But anyways, a successful running back there. What?
He played for Philly.
Remember? Oh, he was also in Philly? Right. Also in Philly.
It wasn't memorable, so I understand, but go on.
Mainly, you'll probably mainly remember him from the Cowboys, DeMarco Murray, but, he kind of has an example to kind of follow there. I'm not sure if DeMarco Murray is still on that staff, but honestly, as an OU fan, I am kind of excited about the hire, and kind of the culture that's coming back to OU. Lincoln Riley, offensive guy. OU's kind of returning to its tradition a little bit here by going with a defensive-minded guy. He's bringing in some of his guys from Clemson, eyeballing some assistant coaches from Bama. So, OU, as they prepare to play in the SEC, they're done with this finesse, throw the ball around the yard kind of thing. I think they're returning back to that no-nonsense, strong defense, because defense has been kind of a lacking trait, I should say, of OU teams these past few years over the Lincoln Riley era. And, returning to that hard-nosed, defensive, control the clock, run the ball kind of OU of years past. What the program is most known for, under Bob Stoops and whatnot. And I think that spells a great thing here for Gavin Sawchuk. Now, looking at OU's roster here, they do have 2 senior running backs in Jeremiah Hall and Braden Willis. So I think that he'll probably serve a redshirt year. I think that would only make sense. But with how slim this is, it depends on the transfer portal and more commitments and whatnot, of course. But you could be looking at a situation where, if one of these guys gets banged up, you might see a little bit of Gavin Sawchuk as a freshman. I would much prefer him to be redshirted and kind of work out some of these kinks in his game, because I do think that he has the ability. I think that, part of his struggles here at Valor was kind of the one-dimensionality that they used him to. Watching the game against Creek, the game plan was uninspired, to put it lightly, I would say, for Valor's offense. It was a lot of just halfback dives or off tackles. They didn't try and get creative in the run game. They kind of really hadn't had to in years past with Gavin, because he just usually dominates physically over defenses. But, you're going to have to at some point game plan. And I think that this OU staff will be very capable of that. And I think that they're going to be able to use him a lot more effectively even, which is crazy to think because of how effective he was at Valor. I think that they'll be able to use him a lot more effectively here at Oklahoma here. And it'll kind of play well that he's running into kind of a similar, I don't want to say philosophy, but for lack of a better word, philosophy or culture of running the ball tough, running the ball often, and, running the ball on long drives, and then keeping the defense fresh to go out and make some hard-hitting plays. So, Simon, would you say that Gavin Sawchuk's path to the NFL out of all of these top 5 guys probably has the least amount of obstacles and the most amount of assets here?
Well, I just wanted to point this out because I think we're looking at the same depth chart. Jeremiah Hall declared for the draft. So that means this past year he was a senior. So Jeremiah Hall will be entering the NFL draft. Willis Braden is a senior, so I assume he's going to be graduating. So that's halfback. On the running back side, you have Kennedy Brooks. I would assume he would enter the draft. I'd be more surprised if Kennedy Brooks. I mean, I don't know. You tell me.
He balled out in that Oregon game. So yeah, I think you ride the high wave here with Kennedy Brooks.
Okay. So if I'm Kennedy Brooks, I'm out of there. Yeah, I'm probably out of there. I probably wouldn't wait for a whole new coaching staff and see what happens there, and maybe your stats go down. So, yeah, so Kennedy Brooks and Jeremiah Hall are both going into the draft probably. And then that kind of leaves, you have a junior transfer in Eric Gray, who'll be a senior next year, I think. You have a redshirt sophomore in Marcus Majors. And then you have another junior transfer in Jaden Knowles, so he'll be a senior next year as well. I would say as far as depth charts going, obviously you have Javante Barnes from Desert Pines, Las Vegas. Desert Pines, Las Vegas and Nevada. I think either Alexa or Kenzie might have some sort of connection there. But regardless, he is the number 10 rated running back in the country, also a 4-star guy. He is going to be coming in as well. So I think he's Gavin's main competition. Before Lincoln Riley left, this subject is going to hurt Kodey, so I might as well, tear the Band-Aid here. Before Lincoln Riley left, I was definitely concerned about the playing time Gavin Sawchuk would get because Malik Brown is a dog. Mater Dei, he played for Mater Dei, played for another school before. I think shout out to the homie Jonah Coleman. He told us to look up Malik Brown, and so I did his film breakdown basically right after. But Malik Brown was somebody who ran basically a 4-3 at running back and was going to play receiver and running back probably for Oklahoma. He was going to be a kind of a beast. And then obviously Lincoln Riley left, and so Malik left with him to USC there. And so with that being said, that was probably his biggest competition, I've kind of felt like Malik Brown was even a guy that could replace Kennedy Brooks and compete with him for snaps when he came over. Because that's how good I thought Malik Brown is. He is somebody that could, he's that dude. He's an NFL player, straight up, And so with that kind of being cleared out, you have some, upperclassmen here. I wouldn't be surprised if Oklahoma, maybe gets Gavin some snaps here or there early on in the season and then redshirt him, right, before he plays too many games or whatever. But I could also see him maybe getting a bigger role here because there's not as much competition, at least as of right now.
Jaden Knowles is probably the favorite because he had a pretty good game in that Oregon game. So
yeah, talking about guys that are still on the roster, by the way. So yeah, but right now, January 6, 2022. Early signing day has already happened. I'm sure Oklahoma might snag a couple more running backs. By the way, those two running backs are the only running backs in the top 100, at least as far as running backs go, that Oklahoma has snagged. So they don't have any others coming, at least that are ranked in the top 100 ranked running backs here. So I think there is a good chance that he'll get some playing time early often, if not this year, next year, And so I think his versatility will definitely be, he'll get dinged for that, and then I think you could also expect some transfers to come in. That's a normal thing, right? And so even with that being said, I think he'll get some playing time for sure for sure his second year, but I wouldn't be surprised if he got some, this upcoming year here. So I don't know. We'll see. But, Oklahoma, they're maintaining at least one of these guys here. Gavin Sawchuk, I think, could definitely learn a lot from DeMarco Murray. I think their play styles are very similar. DeMarco Murray wasn't like the fastest dude in the world or anything like that, but, he was kind of a bruising back here. If he could get his agility up, get his change of direction up, which, first off, isn't exactly the hardest thing to do. He could be a threat, But we'll just have to see moving forward. Kodey, is there anything else you want to add? I think I've said my piece about Gavin.
I think that kind of wraps it up. And, save all your hate mail for the DMs. No need to make the posts a messy place. And, we're here to listen, but our minds are pretty set on this, that kind of no way you chop it up, he was not going to come out rated as number one. And that's tough.
I'm not.
But, I think he does have a great path ahead of him, and I think that he can improve these things and end up, having the longest career out of any of these guys, probably the easiest. But with all that being said, we're going to talk about the rest of these guys and how great they were their senior year. Coming up, number 3. Hi, welcome back to the Playmakers Corner podcast. I am one of your hosts, Cody Stauffer, joined here by Coach V, and we are talking the number 3 senior running back here in Colorado, and that is going to belong to a state champion. This will be a reoccurring theme at least one more time following this guy, but a state champion here in Frank Ortega out of Fort Morgan, the 5'8", 185-pound running back here, who kind of did it all for this Fort Morgan team and helped secure a championship for them and winning a 3A championship MVP on the way. Didn't he win the MVP for that game, Simon? You were there.
Yes, I think he did. Sorry. I'm thinking about mine too, but I think I gave it to Briggs Wheatley. But yeah, no, he won the MVP of that game, I think.
Yeah, and in that game, it was a tough sledding against this, really good Meade team. But ultimately, he did finish that day with 2 rushing touchdowns as well as a reception against probably, or at least at that point, the most on fire defense in 3A football. All things considered here. And on top of that, he also plays defense. So, for one thing, his endurance is absurd. And just his playmaking ability on both sides of the ball is phenomenal. And so talking about things that Frank Ortega does well, I rated Frank Ortega as having the best vision in this class. Actually, I gave his vision a 9.1. And it would not be the only 9 here that he got, as he did receive a 9 in receiving. I also rated him as the best pass-catching back. And for those who are kind of wondering why, well, he's one of the only guys who routinely lines up, split up, outside, in the slot, in an H-back position, running routes out of running back, and a plethora of routes at that, at running back. He does run, your typical swing passes, your screen passes. He does find a lot of success on running back wheels, which, I wouldn't say is an uncommon route for a running back, but the effectiveness of him running those routes, I think, is routinely spectacular. On top of that, he also does run that Texas route more than most other running backs, and then just straight up out routes out of the backfield as well. And he does a great job at knowing the down and distance in order to capitalize off of said opportunities in the pass game. And with all that being said, this year as a pass catcher, I'm pretty sure he paced most running backs in the state here, gathering up 31 receptions for 884 yards and 9 receiving touchdowns, with his most predominant game against Niwot, who, I don't think Niwot's a slouch. They were a fringe playoff team and, a team that I think is pretty well coached, honestly, and they do a good job of maximizing their athletes. So, and they routinely have some pretty decent athletes, I would say. So, I think that was a great performance. 3 receptions, 174 yards, and 3 scores. The very next week against Mountain View, he almost had 200 yards and 2 scores as well. So, he's a great pass catcher. He's great at route running. He has phenomenal hands. And I think that's further evidenced, by his defensive play. We kind of consider that at times when factoring in receiving categories. And on the season, he had 10 interceptions at safety, including 3 in the state semifinal against Lutheran and against Clayton Jacobs, who I think is, Clayton Jacobs is a name you're going to hear on our top senior quarterbacks list. So, with all that in mind, he does a lot of things spectacularly through the air, but this is a top 5 running backs list. So talking about things that he does well as a running back, like I said, his vision was the highest rated on this list. I think that his footwork is borderline 4-star with an 8.7. I think his agility, I rated that at an 8.8, and it is, the 3rd highest on this list. I think agility and change of direction has a lot to do. I think he's pretty fast, but I think his acceleration is even more impressive than his speed. He gets up to speed very quickly, and, I think he just does a lot of things right in a lot of different ways. And, if it weren't for Briggs Wheatley having a lot of the spotlight, being the talent that he is, Frank Ortega would definitely be the face that and if he could dominate on any level 1 through 5A with his intangibles as both a running back and a receiver. And I think that he's one of the most overlooked prospects, not only here in Colorado, but maybe the entire country, just with what a great athlete he is and all the little things that he does well as well. I think he's a very smart football player, obviously being able to run multiple positions. But, in the backfield, one reason why I gave his vision such a high rating is, I'll dink some guys who go east to west when they should just take what the defense gives them and head north and south. I think Frank Ortega has given me the least amount of complaints, or, my personal complaints on his game as far as deciding when to cut, deciding when to truck. He always just kind of knows exactly what is needed for what situation, and that is very obviously his strongest asset as a football player, is just being very situationally aware and then being able to live up to the situation as well. So now that I'm done kind of raving here about Frank Ortega, we do have another host here in Coach V, so I'm going to pass the mic to him and kind of let him speak his piece on Frank Ortega, the running back out of Fort Morgan.
Yeah, so I actually got to see Frank Ortega play in that state championship game against Meade. And Meade, they're a very good defense, very disciplined, hard hitting. And so I already knew going into that game it'd be tough. And so for Frank to do what he did in that game really impressed me and made a very good impression, honestly. But you know what? Let me talk about his stats real quick here. So I'm just going to talk about his senior year. I think that's fair. Obviously, he did play on the defensive side of the ball. He was actually one of our finalists for Defensive Playmaker of the Year on the 3A level, because he also had 3 interceptions. Or, sorry, not 3 interceptions. He had 10 interceptions. Sorry, he had 3 interceptions in one game, in the game that sent them to state, actually. So there you go there. But let me talk about him on offense. On 155 carries, averaging about 6 yards a game. 6 yards a carry. He had 948 rushing yards and 12 rushing touchdowns. So, pretty solid. But in the receiving game, this is where he really separates himself from a lot of the other running backs, even some of our receivers on our top 5 list in the state. He got 31 receptions this senior year for 884 yards and 9 receiving touchdowns. I'm just going to read off his top 3 highest receiving games here, but it goes 193 receiving yards, 174 receiving yards, 157 receiving yards. And so that is pretty insane. Obviously, he's also playing defense. He's also rushing on offense. He's doing his thing. So he legitimately is somebody that I could trust putting into the slot, and I think he could put some work in. I think on the D1 level, he's somebody that you could put into the slot. He's going to go ahead, catch the ball, make a couple people miss, and then go get the first down. I think the thing I really like about Frank Ortega, other than the fact that he can catch the ball and run the ball, so there's a lot of versatility there, is his ability to break a bunch of tackles. He is somebody with a lot of juice on him. He has a lot of moves as well. He has a pretty good bag between his jukes, spins, pivots, whatever. He has it all. And, he keeps you guessing. He's somebody that you don't really want to see one-on-one. If anything, like the best you can hope for is that maybe you catch an ankle, one of his ankles, and that's enough to trip him up for half a second. But also, he has that ability to speed up and get to his top end speed pretty quick here. But even then, the highest rating I have for Frank Ortega is his balance and body control. I think he has arguably the best body control in the entire state. He's not somebody that's easily tripped up. He's just very, very balanced. He's extremely hard to take down because of that. And, for that reason, that's why he's able to get so many yards after contact and after the catch. He's just so dangerous there. But that being said, he is not our number 1 rated running back. And even if he was, there are things that he would need to work on there. So let me talk about some of those things. First off, he is only 5'8", 180 now. That doesn't automatically disqualify him from playing running back on the next level. But you could probably put on a little bit more here. I think as far as strength goes, he could be a little bit stronger. On this list in general, he's actually the lowest rated as far as power and explosiveness goes for me, which isn't bad. I gave him a 7.6 out of 10, so that's like above average. So I think his body control really disguises a lot of that, and I think body control and balance is different from like just pure raw straight up. And so I think that's definitely something to keep in mind, especially on the next level. I mean, he's only 5'8", 180. He's not exactly going to be somebody that's super difficult to tackle from a power perspective there. And so I think he could definitely get a little bit stronger. I think receiving wise, I think he could play receiver on the next level potentially, so that's not, the worst thing. But I think he could definitely continue to work on that, continue to develop a couple more moves there. Not, like I said, not his biggest weakness there. But I think the thing that really dinged him and hurt him here was his blocking ability. And part of blocking, at least I'm just going to say this for me, and I think Kodey as well when we rated blocking, if there's no blocking film out there, then we go off of how great a blocker you would be based off of your frame. And he's 5'8", 180. Is he going to be able to stop a linebacker straight up on the D1 level who's like 6 foot, 210 plus? Maybe. I don't know. I would probably say no, actually. So there you go. So it's rated out of 5. So just I would probably consider that a little bit below average. Like I said, I haven't seen a lot of it, but I think if he really wants to separate himself, he needs to be somebody that could pass protect in the pocket, when the quarterback is throwing and all that. So there you go there. Before I talk about, outlook here and all that, Kodey, do you have anything else you want to add on here as far as improvements go?
My lowest rated thing for him was tackle breaking and strength. Like you said, his balance and body control kind of can hide that at times. And I think that the only reason he's ever able to is because of his acceleration. But yeah, I think that's just kind of a frame thing, in my opinion. Not to say that you can't ball out at 5'8", 180. I'm pretty sure that the second highest rated running back is 5'8". He probably weighs more than 180 pounds, but the second highest rated running back in high school football this upcoming class is 5'8". So, it's possible to ball out. But yeah, he definitely struggled with just strength related things. Like you said, blocking. Don't have a lot of faith or confidence in that. And I got to see him a little bit against Roosevelt. But honestly, with the weapons that Fort Morgan had, they kind of couldn't afford to have him back to block a whole lot. If he wasn't running the ball, then he had to be a pass catching option, is kind of what the layout looked like there. And obviously it worked to a high degree of success, seeing as that they were crowned state champs. But, he definitely needs to hit the weight room, put on a little bit of weight, be able to push through guys, be able to throw. I mean, geez, even if he was able to add like a really mean stiff arm to his game, I think that he would elevate, probably into the 2 spot here. That's kind of where I'm at with Frank Ortega. But he's so under-recruited. I can't find anything on his recruiting. Can you, Simon?
No, he has 0 offers, straight up. At least from what I could see. Maybe he doesn't, and he just doesn't post about it. But from what I see, he doesn't have any offers. I feel like he would post about them if he did, because that's a pretty big deal. Look, he's real underrated. I think strength is obviously a big deal here, but it shouldn't be that big of a deal. I mean, I listed strength as kind of his biggest improvement because I just want to – if he could get to the point where, he's strong enough to go head-to-head with those guys on the next level, that's fine. And by the way, I do think he's a D1 guy. I think if he was to play FBS, he would probably be more of a rotational, maybe change of back, probably won't play until, like, his junior or senior year. We'll probably get in special teams and whatnot. I could see him there. On the FCS level, I could see him as somebody who could be a lead back for a team there, in my opinion, because he could do so much. Also he could play, defense as well. I think it's worth looking at his defensive stats. So that means, personally, he could probably ball out on special teams and do his thing there. So there you go. So I think he's capable of doing those things. If he was to take a D2 offer, he'd be a star. I think he would be a stat leader on the D2 level, personally. So there you go there. But right now, no offers as of January 6, 2022, at least none that we could find online.
Whack. So whack.
Oh, yeah. I mean, because he is a state champion. He's a great athlete all around. He will find a spot. I think if he wants to go JUCO so that he could get that recognition, that's cool. He'll still do his thing there. He'll catch, he'll receive, he'll do all that. I'm not super worried about him. Arguably, Frank Ortega is probably the second most versatile player on this entire list. So, there you go. Like, I would consider playing him at slot and seeing what happens and, have him take on that role as an athlete, put him at slot, maybe put him outside, playing a little bit at running back here.
I could see him play slot corner even.
Yeah, that too.
I feel like
he has good ball skills.
Just so skilled. Yeah, he has phenomenal ball skills. Probably the best ball skills on this list, or at least that's how I rated his receiving, was a 9. And so I think that if you're a school, you should take a chance on him for the simple fact that, literally, if one thing doesn't work out, something else will. Like, he's just too good at too many positions to not get him offered. And I really think that he could be a solid receiver on the FCS level. I think he'd be better than some of the receivers on our top receivers list on the FCS level. Mainly number 5, but
yeah, easily.
I think that he's just too good of an athlete to be on the outside looking in. So colleges, you need to hit up Frank Ortega out of Fort Morgan. And if you're worried about the competition he played the best 3A schools that could definitely put it to 4 and even 5A schools. I have no doubt about that. I have no doubt that a Meade or a Lutheran or a Frederick or a Roosevelt, they could beat some 5A teams. I have zero doubt about that. And so could this Fort Morgan team, in big part thanks to Frank Ortega.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I don't think there's any doubt there. Kid's a beast, And then, if you're worried about, Fort Morgan, nobody ever good from there comes out from Fort Morgan. The McBride brothers, Trey McBride, actually, this year's John Mackey winner that goes to the best tight end in the entire country for collegiate football. He came from Fort Morgan. A bunch of other players have come from Fort Morgan before. So let's not act like, Fort Morgan is, low-key putting out more players, to college like some of these other higher level 4A and 5A teams. Because they do, Not only like guys that can play, but guys that can excel on that level. So just keep that in mind. I think Frank Ortega, he's an absolute monster out there. What more can I say? I'm very excited to see where he plays next. I think he's somebody that has a lot of talent. He's somebody that, if a team gets hit with the injury bug, he could literally be their savior. So I'm just throwing that out there. I really, truly believe that. But with that being said, I realize I didn't say the final rating for Gavin Sawchuk. I'm not going to say that. He already has stars. But for Frank Ortega, personally, as a final grade, I have him at an 82 out of 100, so 82 flat. So that's about a 3-star. That's about a 3-star, mid to lower. You could, decide what you want there. But, Kodey, what was your grade for Frank Ortega here?
My final grade was 81.5. So, yeah, 3-star guy and under-recruited for sure. But who did we both rate higher than him? Coming up next. Hi, all. Welcome back to the Playmakers Corner podcast. I'm joined here by Coach V, and I myself am Cody Stauffer, talking about our top 2022 senior running backs here in Colorado. And here at number 2, you thought that, we've talked about a 5A guy, we've talked about a 2A guy, we've talked about a 3A guy. Now we got a 1A guy here. I believe that this is this like the second 1A guy who's made one of these lists, I want to say? Outside of like Miles, I think. But anyways,
I think maybe the last 1A guy to make this for this year at least. So
yeah. So and you may be asking, well, how could a 1A guy make a top 5 list? And I'm going to tell you exactly how, as I'm talking about our voted on 1A Most Valuable Playmaker winner from our 1A Awards show. Make sure to give that a listen and hear more on Mason Clonch, our number 2 running back in the senior class. This guy, he's phenomenal. He's absolutely phenomenal. I'm going to just talk about, I gave him 9s in 3 separate categories. It may vary a little bit here from Coach V, but I gave his footwork a 9 here. And I gave his speed a 9 and his acceleration a 9. And I think that it's very obvious, as you saw what he did for the Centauri Falcons in their state championship bid. He's our last state champion here on this list, actually. And, he was an integral part of the run that Centauri made all the way to CSU Pueblo and was integral to their championship win as well. He's incredible on both sides of the ball, but as a running back, I just think that his agility and change of direction is so fluid and so smooth. I gave him an 8.9 out of that. And then, the burst that he has out of those breaks, is just very impressive. And is, obviously you can't change direction like that without the balance and body control, but being able to change direction and then maintain a high speed. I mean, look, the cameras have a hard time keeping up with him on his highlight reel. And, a lot of people may be like, well, what is his speed really? He's a 1A guy. He's going against 1A competition. Not only does he leave people in the dust in 1A, but 1A boys, one thing that I can say about them is that they hustle and they don't give up on a play. Like, I can tell you that in a lot of these other running backs films, they're kind of trying to chase a guy down and then they kind of give up around the 5-yard line. 1A guys will chase you from end zone to end zone routinely. And, I think that was something that was obvious when we looked at Miles Sprague. And while just looking through all of these 1A guys, is that their hustle is, it's different than some of the guys on 4 and 5A because they know that they have to go an extra mile to get the looks. And even with that extra hustle, that extra boost, multiple people, and that physical brand of football, Mason Clonch still smokes these guys to the end zone. And I swear he leaves a little bit of a flame trail as he runs down the sideline because of how much speed he picks up. I mean, just that extra gear that he kicked into in that state championship game was unlike most things I'd seen all year. Watching live football week in and week out, watching multiple games a week, watching streams of games. It was just so different live to see Mason Clonch and that acceleration that, is patented to him. And the Fast Break Falcons, one of the more fun storylines and one that I'm looking forward to talking about on our season in review episode, next week. But Simon, I don't want to take away everything. And, I know heading into the season, I was like, well, Centauri, we should keep an eye on them for 1A state championship because this guy, Mason Clonch, he did it all for them last year. And I think that he could be even better this year. Did he live up to that hype or what?
Well, first off, Kodey, our season in review episode will actually come out this Friday. Next Friday. So there you go. Actually, you said next week, but I was thinking this episode will come out on Monday. So actually,
Thanks.
I'm an idiot.
Thanks for correcting me for no reason, Coach
There's no
V.
correction there. I'm correcting myself, so I'm an idiot. So with that being said, let me go ahead and talk about stats here. On this year, okay, he had a solid 968 rushing yards and 16 rushing touchdowns. Had the lowest amount of carries. Well, actually, no. This is really weird. Kate Palmer and him actually had the same number of carries at 113 carries, I think. So that's interesting. But definitely, so tied for the lowest number of carries on this list and probably in our honorable mentions as well. So 968 rushing yards, 16 rushing touchdowns. So he did his thing there. But I kind of want to talk about his career yardage because he did it all. Obviously he's a great athlete, great track athlete, all that. I'll spit out some track stats out there because I know, a lot of our listeners may tend to be 5A, 4A biased. Don't lie about it. You're 5A or 4A biased. You think just because you play on the 5A level, you're magically better. That is false Personally, I don't care what level you play on. If you're a dog, I'm going to recruit you. If you're a dog, I'm going to talk about you. And so that's who Mason Quanch is. He's a certified dog, and he can and will beat out a lot of the athletes on the 5A and 4A level, and maybe even be the missing piece to a lot of those teams if he was to play on the 5A, 4A level. But like I said, let me talk about his career stats. He has, got varsity snaps since he was a freshman, but it wasn't really until I would say his maybe sophomore year where he got consistent, snaps and whatnot as a running back. But, so basically in 3 years, he had about 288 career rushing yards and 58 rushing touchdowns on only 400 carries. For a career, averaging 8 yards per carry, 8.1 yards per carry, which is pretty dang good. But total touchdowns he scored in his career is at 80 because he also has about 15 receiving touchdowns throughout his whole career. 9 of those receiving touchdowns came as a freshman. As a freshman, he did play more receiver than running back. He had 19 receptions, about 400 yards, 9 touchdowns. Then, as a sophomore, did take on more responsibilities as a running back, had 124 carries, but he also had 26 receptions for about 400 yards and 5 touchdowns there. And so this dude's a dog. He could catch it. He could run it. If you look at his film, if you look at his senior film, he didn't really catch the ball a whole lot on offense, but on defense, he has really good ball skills. Probably better ball skills than a lot of 4A and 5A running backs, if I'm being completely honest with you. He's somebody that could go up and moss anybody, straight up, because he's that guy.
Makes wow catches constantly.
Yeah, he could make contested catches easily. He could catch it over 2 or 3 guys easily as well. I don't doubt that. So his receiving, honestly, just him as a receiver, he's elite, I would say. He's another guy that I would actually be pretty okay putting out at wide receiver because he could go up and get it and just dominate DBs because he's also 6'1", 180, so he's pretty built as well. So there you go there. Now, as far as ratings go, I have a lot of the same ratings as Kodey did, so I'm not going to talk about that too much. But I'm going to talk about this one rating, though. This is his highest one. I did give him a 9 for speed here. Usually a 9 goes to 4-star guys. In my opinion, if I give you a 9, you either run a 4.5 or a 4.4, at least. Mason Quanch is definitely in that conversation. Not only is he a football star, but he is also a track star. So let me go ahead and talk about some of his best finishes, because here's the thing. You could talk about level of competition, play, all that stuff. In track, it's the same yardage, bruh. it's the same. You can't change that. You can't be like, oh, what's a different level of competition? No, bruh, 100 meters is 100 meters. And his best 100-meter time is 11.27 seconds. That's pretty good, I want to say he actually got first place, on the 2A level, 11.27 seconds there. His 200-meter time, 22.4 seconds. 400-meter time, 49.7 seconds. I'm looking at his track stats right now. He has competed in the 100-meter, 200-meter, 400-meter, 4x100-meter. These are realized, by the way. 4x200-meter and 4x400-meter. He has not placed – he's actually only placed second place once. And that was in the CHSAA 2A State Championships. He got second place for the 200-meter, basically. So there you go. Other than that, first place all around. This kid's fast. He has 4.4 speed at 6'1", 180, and he has a little bit of wiggle to him. He is an elite running back, and he deserves to be up here. He can replace a lot of 4A, 5A, 3A, 2A running backs, 1A running backs, obviously. That's just who he is. Mason Quanch from Centauri. He's a big reason why they also won their first ever state championship. So there you go. That being said, Kodey, do you mind if I talk about some areas of improvements here real quick?
Send it.
Okay, so, look, I mean, honestly, I don't really have a lot. I think maybe his acceleration could be a little bit better. He does need a little bit of a platform to get to his top end speed. Gave him a 7.8, 7.9 here. But other than that, he has very solid stats here. Basically, everything is an 8.5. I did give him an 8.2 for power and explosiveness. I didn't really see a lot of that on his senior film. A little bit of it on his junior film for sure. But don't get it twisted. He's still somebody who could be up there. I mean, look, I'm just going to be honest. If I was to give him, higher than 8.5, then that would be classifying him probably as more of a power back. Like I said, Leonard Fournette is probably the only guy that, coming out of high school, that is, that I would give 9s on speed, agility, all that, and power. So just keep that in mind. That's probably fair when you're keeping in mind that's like the threshold here. So there you go there. We'd love to see a little bit more blocking. I did give him a 6.5 here. He does have some blocking film here, which is pretty good. He gets in there. I would just say on the next level, I'd like to see him be able to block like that on the next level, really be good in pass protection and whatnot, and just neutralize guys straight up, because I think he has the frame at 6'1", 180 to do that, and the strength probably. I think it just comes down to more of a skill thing there. So yeah. And then other than that, I would say maybe, he could run with a little bit more bounce, break a couple more tackles here or there. I think on this level, it works out really, really well. On the next level, I think he could definitely get stronger. He's only 6'1", 180. I think if ideally he gets to the 6'1", 200 range, he's going to be perfect. That should improve his tackle breaking and all that, and his power as well. So there you go. Kodey, is there anything else you want to add on before we talk outlook?
Yeah, just real quick, I do want to say that he is the highest rated blocker on this top 5 list for me. I gave him a 7. Specifically, I think that his biggest play in the pass block game is he did pick up a blitz from Jeremiah Leaper, who is one of the best players in 1A football and, a guy who just missed the list. But we'll talk about that a little bit more in a sec. But he did pick up a blitz in that state championship game, and he has before. As long as it's straight in front of him, he does a great job of getting leverage and popping. I just think that he needs a little bit more work in the film room to round that out a little bit. I also do agree with Simon that his tackle breaking can be a little bit more. And just, basically that. Just getting a little bit stronger and being a bit more focused, I'd say, in the passing game. Because I don't think that it's not that he doesn't know where to block, but I think that he just doesn't care about it as much. And the fact that he has a 7 while being kind of lackadaisy about it is really a testament on just how good he is at raw blocking. And he can block very well in the run game, too. And he can run routes like a receiver, as Simon stated, because of his experience playing wide receiver. So, he's somebody who could trust a block downfield as well, which I love to see. And his run blocking is phenomenal. But I think that he just has to, he needs a coach who has to inspire him to want it a little bit more in the pass blocking game, probably. But with all that being said, I think it's a good time to talk about Outlook. And looking at his Twitter, it's a pretty bare Twitter, I will say. But he is followed by the offensive grad assistant at San Diego State University. And he is also followed by the assistant coach at Chadron State College. Simon, do you know anything else about his recruiting? And or where do you think Mason Klon should play? Because I think that personally he's kind of under-recruited as well.
Well, I tried looking at his Instagram and seeing if there's anything there. Maybe if he got tagged in some recruiting posts and stuff like that. But most of the stuff that he's been tagged in was stuff that we tagged him in. So, boom, there you go. No, I don't know if he has any offers right now. I would announce it. First off, if you're a recruit out there or you're a senior out there, announce your offers. It never hurts to make some colleges jealous. But I think Mason Klonch is somebody that could be D1. I think, if he was to go to an FCS team, I'm looking at probably UNC, he could carve out a role for himself out there. If not on offense, then definitely on special teams, And also, I think he's somebody who could potentially play both ways. Like, I think right now he's like 6'1", 180, played a lot of safety and stuff like that. But I think he could also potentially play linebacker on the next level. I think he has the build for it. If he gets up to 200, I think he would be in a very good spot to play linebacker on the next level for sure. just because of his athleticism there, his ball skills, all that great stuff. But I think he's D1 for sure. I think he could be a star on the FCS level. I think as far as FBS goes, he could definitely push some players. He could make the locker room uncomfortable because he's a threat to he's a competitor and whatnot. So I think he could definitely be a threat and push some players on the FBS level. Regardless, I think he's D1. Talent wise. So yeah. Plus, because of his ability to play defense, I think that makes him into a pretty proficient guy on special teams. Got to keep that in mind. I think he's a pretty solid tackler, pretty good tackler, and that could speed up, how fast he plays on the next level. But don't get it twisted. I think he's for sure a next level guy. I think, if he doesn't get the offers he wants, he could always take the Corey Taha route and go walk on somewhere. Because Corey Taha, he was very similar, being a very good athlete himself, and he bet on himself there too over at CSU. So yeah, Kodey, what do you think?
He absolutely could walk on at, I think, a handful of D1 schools, and D1s need to take a look at him. He's so freaking versatile, and I think too many people get scared by the level of competition, but the film doesn't lie. Like, you watch this guy, and everything that we talked about, his body control, his receiving, his footwork, his vision, none of that has anything to do with, the level of competition. And also, I'd say that, as far as the level of competition that he played, a lot of these defenses call more complex defenses than 5A or 4A programs do sometimes. And a lot of these offenses, he also helped spank a 2A program that won their conference last year in Pagosa Springs. So, he played up and dominated on that next tier, and I'm positive he would be able to do that on the 3A level, on the 4A level, on the 5A level. And, he has a frame and size that is D1 at 6 foot, 180 pounds, so it's not like a Frank Ortega where it's like, he's kind of undersized. No, Mason Claunch is adequately sized to play a plethora of positions. The number of touchdowns that he's scored in his football career is ludicrous, is a great way to describe it. He just scores from anywhere and everywhere on the field. He can score from defense. He can score from special teams. He can score at running back. He can score at wide receiver. And so I just don't see how this guy isn't recruited. I think that he's a phenomenal running back. I think he has. Also, speed doesn't lie. Like you referenced all of those track numbers, his 40-yard dash time, speed doesn't lie. He has Division I speed. So, I think that honestly that these FCS schools need to take a look at him and just be like, wow, we're going to get if we land this guy, then the sky's the limit for Mason Claunch, I think, on the next level as a do-it-all kind of player. He's somebody who I think on the D1 level could play as a true freshman. I really think he could, whether that be at running back or whether that be on special teams, just because of how athletic and strong he is in general. And, with those D1 facilities, I can't even fathom how far he can go. But,
yeah.
And my final grade for Mason Claunch here was an 82.8, actually.
Wow.
Which is good. Yeah, which is a whole almost 1.5 higher than number 3 here. So I really like Mason Claunch here. I think that, he's a 3-star-ish guy here now. I think that he could play better than a 4-star guy. Literally next year. I think that he's just so well-rounded. A lot of guys, they get recruited because they're just, phenomenal athletes, raw athletes. But Mason Claunch, he's that and more as far as a football player. Simon, if you want to talk about your final grade, go for it. Otherwise, take us to the break.
Yeah. Look, I gave him an 82.4, so really close to Kodey. I would agree. He's definitely – I would rank him as a 3-star guy if it wasn't for that lack of recognition on the 1A level here in Colorado. 1A Colorado football in general, because I know I could already hear the haters being like, he doesn't run a 4.4. Yeah, why don't you go out to Lahara and, go race him real quick? Yeah, I don't think you'd want to waste your time with that because I think he's legit enough. So there you go. I think Mason Quanch, when it comes down to it, could outcompete and outperform a lot of players that are put on scholarship for a lot of football programs, and that's just facts. And that should scare a lot of those, recruits and whatnot that may think they got it done after they earned their scholarship and after they sign. I think he's somebody legitimately, if he does, land at some D2 or whatever, he could be a league winner. If you're a coach who needs your job saved, he could be a job savior for you because it's like, oh, shoot, who's this guy? From La Jara, Colorado? Sure, he was a state champ and whatnot and, a track champ and whatnot, but how good is he really? And then he wins you your league. And then he wins you a couple games. At the very least, he puts butts in the stands because he's that electrifying. Take a chance on him. See what happens. He's a winner. Proven through and through. And I have a lot of respect for Mason Quanch, and I want to see him play on the next level because I think he could really make some scholarship guys sweat. And he could really be where'd this guy come from type of guy. And we'll say we've been known about Mason Quanch. 1A been known about Mason Quanch longer than us. He's terrorized them forever. And so we'll just have to see. But I think he is extremely deserving of this number 2 spot here. Without a doubt, this is probably the most sure I've been. Yeah, well, okay, maybe not the most sure I've been making these top 5s. I'm always pretty much the most sure about the number 1 guy. But as far as the number 2 spot go, I am very positive he deserves to be here and more. And he's going to prove it to you. So just watch. But that's all I got to say about Mason Quanch here from Centauri. Coming up next, we're going to talk about our number 1 guy, but we're also going to talk about the millions that didn't make this top 5 list in our honorable mentions.
Welcome back to episode 98, Playmakers Corner podcast, talking top 5 senior running backs here in the beautiful state of Colorado. I am joined here by Coach V, and I am one of your hosts, Cody Stauffer. And if you have snoozed through the last segments, our list, starting at 5, went Cade Palmer of the Classical Academy Titans. At number 4, we had the 4-star back, Gavin Sawchuk out of Valor Christian. At number 3, the Fort Morgan Mustangs sent forth Frank Ortega. And at number 2, the Fast Break Falcons produced their the 1A most valuable playmaker and the number 2 running back on this list, Mason Quanch. And at number 1 will be coming up here after we shout out all of these phenomenal runners here in the state of Colorado. As I stated at the beginning of this episode, we had a list of like 30 guys. So really quickly, I'm going to talk about, guys that, are just on the outside looking in, but are also phenomenal talents. And, we've said all of these guys are D1 talent, and there is some D1 talent sitting in these honorable mentions as well. I won't specify necessarily who, but some guys who did find success this year was, Parker Ayers out of Frederick. He was one of our 3A Offensive Playmaker of the Year candidates and won Coach Booten's vote. Then you also had Connor Ladd out of Lakewood, who is a great pass catching and running back. Connor Cook out of Palmer Ridge, a team that made it to the quarterfinals this year. And, as Coach V said, if you need a yard, he'll get you a yard. Cale Shaver out of Bayfield, he was another candidate for our 2A Offensive Player of the Year, I believe. And, he's a great pass catching back. Dorian Pacheco out of Lutheran, who actually won our Defensive Playmaker of the Year for the 3A level. He was a great running back there. Isaiah Davis at Denver East. Sam Sherry of Basalt High School was another baller. Justice Lilly out of Longmont. Ryan Segovia out of Bear Creek, who's just a phenomenal ball player who I got to see live. Finn Cooper out of Kent Denver. Jean Aguilar, I believe is how you say that, out of Florence High School. Also going to shout out Desmond Oliver of Fountain Fort Carson, who had a phenomenal year. And Caleb Tyson out of Erie High School, who made some big plays in that 4A state championship and was another guy in consideration. Other guys who got scored was Braylon Tate out of Legacy, that is in Fort Collins. My bad. And, he had a phenomenal year and just scored a little bit below some of these other guys. Parker Ayers, as I mentioned, he was another guy who we graded. Seth Cromwell out of Columbine High School. He was a baller this year who won Playmaker of the Week, I believe, once or twice. And, was just very good in that Columbine system. Jeremiah Leeper, another running back in the long list of successful running backs out of Lyman High School who just narrowly missed this list. He was also rated at basically a C-, so probably a 2-star recruit kind of guy. Kelton Turner, who was just outside of my list here at a solid C, and I think is a 3-star guy out of Meeker High School, who's one of the better pass catchers. I believe I rated him as like the 4th best pass catcher in this class, and he was a huge playmaker for that Meeker team. And, I'm going to pass it to Simon to talk about our last 2 honorable mentions. One being a guy who is on our top 5 linebackers list, and another guy who just seriously missed making this list by like 0.1 of a point on his grade. So 2 different guys, and then Simon's going to talk about our number 1 guy.
Yeah, I just want to shout out my Greeley Central homie. You hear Chino Salazar. I feel like I just said his name wrong. Chino from Greeley Central is our number 4 rated inside linebacker in the state of Colorado in the class of 2022, I believe. Excellent running back as well. He could probably play running back on a D2 or FCS, to be honest with you. So there you go, though. Obviously has hands, can break a bunch of tackles, has good speed, pretty strong for somebody at his size. So there you go. And the other guy I really want to talk about is Zion Hill, the running back from Pine Creek. For me, he literally missed this list by 1 point. Then that guy being Cade Palmer at number 5. But Zion Hill, he was a workhorse for Pine Creek. A big reason why they had a resurgence this year and bounced back. Probably could have made a run at state if Jojo Roy didn't get hurt and they just focused on Zion Hill. But Zion Hill, he did his thing. I think he's a very good overall athlete and whatnot, but he's going to miss this list just barely because I don't think he's as good an overall athlete as some of the other guys here. So there you go there. But I just wanted to give him his credit because, this dude's an absolute beast. He's somebody that can play on the next level and succeed and be somebody's workhorse. So, yeah, there you go. I think that is it. Respect to all the guys who didn't make our list. It was a lot of fun. I'm not gonna lie. There's a lot of really fun, good running back film just to watch and look at. Like, it's entertaining, but at the end of the day, we have to grade, which is why we decided to pull out these rubrics for this. And obviously, we'll be using rubrics from here on out. But I think this is very fair, to grade it this way because there are just a lot of guys who made a lot of big plays here. Connor Cook, he's a guy that he's going to break at least 2 or 3 tackles a run, which is insane. Braylon Tate, 4.4. That's all you really got to know there. He's an excellent athlete. And all the rest of these guys, Kelton Turner and Jeremiah Leeper, guys who put on for their 1A teams as well. Excellent running backs who could play on the next level for sure, So just want to give them all respect. But Kodey, if you don't mind, if I talk about the number 1 rated running back in the class of 2022?
Please do.
I am extremely happy to announce this. I'm not even going to lie. But it's legend running back Bryce Vaz, committed to our alma mater, the University of Northern Colorado. And look, man, this guy has been underrated. I think because of Gavin Sawchuk, he has been very much overshadowed, even though I think he's a legit 3-star to 4-star prospect for sure. If you look at the film, he carried for his team. And obviously that legend team had a bunch of studs, Jackson Brush, Breckenreiser. By the way, got interviews with both. So, both just studs in their own way as receivers. Third quarterback as well, Colton Warner. He's a pretty good quarterback, may or may not make our top 5 list. Stay tuned for that. That'll be coming out here in a couple weeks. But Bryce Vaz, Legend has had a lot of good running backs, but Bryce Vaz might be one of the best ones to come out from there. He has not, for me, He has 9s on 1, 2, 7 of the 10 categories. He has 9s of 7 of the 10 categories. Those categories are vision, footwork, agility, change of direction, balance, body control, tackle breaking, and acceleration. So he has 9s, at least a 9 in all of those. Actually, at least a 9.2 in all of those. That's more accurate. I think he's legitimately a guy that can potentially be an NFL guy someday. First off, the thing that really stands out to me about Bryce Vaz is that, dude is shifty. Very good body control, very good agility and change of direction, could change on a dime and not lose any speed at all. He is that dangerous as well. His speed I did put actually at a 9. My bad, I lied there. But other than that, everything else that I said, those 7 of 10 categories, he got at least 9.2. But other than that, he's just extremely shifty. He's somebody that is tough to break down on because he could change directions real quick. The other thing that really makes him just dangerous is oh my god, I can't talk. The other thing that really makes him dangerous is his acceleration. Reminds me almost a little bit of Le'Veon Bell, the way prime Le'Veon Bell, obviously not the one that got cut from the Ravens, but Steelers Le'Veon Bell, that's what I'm talking about. The kind of guy that can make a bunch of cuts and then just explode out the hole. Make a cut and boom, go. Kind of dead looking guy and then boom, go. He is very dangerous, somebody who could afford to be a patient runner because he could get out of there quick and hit his top end speed real quick, Very, very efficient running from Bryce Vaz here, which is why he's able to pick apart so many defenses, honestly. He is just it's like a artist, just watching him do his thing out there. It's like an artist. I did get to watch him play. I want to say it was more than once, but the thing that stood out the most to me when I watched him play, because I watched him play against Douglas County, and Douglas County, they're all right. They got some guys there. Obviously A.J. Jackson, Chase Nelson, Stonebreaker. They play both sides of the ball. Bryce Vaz was able to do his thing against them, and it was beautiful. Because it's just a work of art. He has excellent vision as well, so he knows where he wants to go. He could see levels and levels and levels ahead, and then when it comes down to it, defenders can't tackle him straight up because of his just body control, agility, his ability to get in and out of his top speed, just effortlessly. Oh my God. Just effortlessly, he is that guy. I'm extremely excited for him to come to Northern Colorado. I think he could be a day one starter, in my opinion. But we'll save that look for later here. Kodey, is there anything else you want to add on here? Because I don't want to take everything. And I can feel myself getting super excited about this kid because I think he's an absolute stud and an absolute steal here for UNC. And honestly, I think he's undisputedly the number 1 running back in the state of Colorado, and it's not that close.
Yeah, so here I have the highest footwork in the class with a 9.3. I don't give out 9s. I just want to put that out there. I'm stingy with my 9s, but Bryce Vaz earned 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 9s here. Like I said, a 9.3 in footwork. His ability to chop it up and make defenders' ankles cease to exist. He doesn't just break them. He erases them. He snaps them like straight Thanos snaps them out of existence with his footwork. His agility and change of direction, he is so smooth moving from one side of the field to the next and transitioning. He just is so effortless in the way that he moves. His speed at a 9.1. He's the fastest running back in the state of Colorado. 9.3 acceleration. Not only is he the fastest running back in Colorado in a straight line race, but he's also the quickest to get to his top speed, as once he hits that gear, it just all falls into place. 1 foot in front of the other. Impossible to catch him. And then also his last 9 is a flat 9 at balance and body control. This is how he's able to stay up, how he just bounces off of defenders or defenders bounce off of him. He's so good at staying square and playing really low and using leverage to win these battles because, he's not the biggest guy on this list, but just how well he's able to wield his body, his center of gravity. He knows where it is, and he plays at that level all the time. He plays at such a low pad level. It's very impressive. It's something that I've talked about consistently with in the past, and a reason why I'm so excited about Bryce here at the number 1 spot. And, his receiving as well. He got an 8.8 in receiving and an 8.8 in power and explosiveness. Once he sticks that foot in the dirt, he is as good as gone or upfield. And I think that these obviously get boosted here. Receiving wise, he lines up in the slot. He's caught passes out of the slot. And, he catches the screens. He catches the Texas routes. He runs, a very similar route tree-ish to a Mason Clonch. But I just think that his hands are better. And then on top of that, I think that his explosiveness speaks for itself, and his power is a huge reason why he's able to break through tackles. There's one point where he sticks his foot in the dirt, he cuts upfield, and he just literally blasts through these 3 defenders who try and tackle him. And I imagine it's kind of like a cannonball getting shot through a piece of drywall. There is just no stopping that momentum or that velocity. And then, he also has an 8.9 in vision here. So if he didn't get a 9 in a category, he got a borderline 9 in a lot of other categories. He is a phenom for sure. He's a football prodigy, and he is our number 1 senior running back in the class of 2022. And with all that being said, I am going to talk about some reasons here why, maybe some bigger schools might have gotten scared or worried here, and why he did end up being a Northern Colorado Bear. And go Bears, no disrespect, but he definitely can be a Power 5 FBS guy. But I think some of the reasons why they might have got scared is his blocking was a concern for me. I did give his blocking a 5. I'm not the biggest fan of his technique, frame, or just numbers in general. I've seen him whiff on a block, so, that causes concern. But there are times where he can, plant, and as long as the guy's coming at him, he will stand his ground, is what I will say for Bryce Vaz for the most part. And then lastly, tackle breaking / strength, I did give it a 7.5, and a huge part of that came from a very poor performance that he had against Mullen High School earlier in the season against Legend. This is definitely a game that they should not have lost. And even discussing it with the Legend boys, they admitted, yeah, that's a game that we win 9 other times out of 10. And in that game, this is back to me speaking, but in that game, Bryce did put the ball on the rug 3 times against, a Mullen team that did not produce a top 5 guy at any of our senior defensive positions so far. And I don't know about if they will be able to for edge. They're a very young team, to be fair, but I don't know about that. And so, ball security is something I factor in here, in tackle breaking and strength, and that's why he ends up at a 7.5 here. Simon, are there any other areas of improvement you want to impart to Bryce here before talking about his career as a UNC Bear?
Yeah, so blocking is definitely a little bit of concern. I didn't really see a lot of that, so I had to go off a frame. You know how that could get, so I did give him a 5 for blocking. That's the only thing that's not above an 8.5 on this thing, actually. But like I said, I didn't see a lot of it, so I went, straight to frame, and so that's just how we're going to go with that. You could say if it's fair or not, whatever, it is what it is. But the thing with that, hey, Bryce Vaz is the type of guy that you want to get the ball in his hands as many times as possible. So I'd be more surprised if UNC didn't have him going out for a pass in passing situations rather than keeping him in. But you never know. And so I would just advise him to, continue to get stronger, adjust to that next level, and be ready to take on blocks. You don't have to completely neutralize the guy, but if you could buy sorry, I almost said the wrong name. If you could buy McCaffrey, he's the quarterback there right now, an extra second or so, that should be enough, So just keep that in mind. Continue to work on that. Continue to get bigger, I think, is the biggest thing, put on more weight and whatnot. Other than that, I don't have too much here. I think he is honestly as play ready as they come, especially for the FCS level. I think he's ready, and so Kodey, do you mind if I talk about outlook here? We know he's committed to Northern Colorado. That's that's not.
Yeah, we bed knew that. And also, I just wanted to clarify real quick, kind of a non sequitur here in the middle, but keep your eye out for Wildcat quarterbacks. I know a lot of people were asking questions about in our polls about like a Jake Marshall and an Eddie Lemos. That'll be a list for another day. These are for true, pure running backs here. But go ahead and tell us about what you think his outlook looks like as a Bear.
Yeah, so I don't know. I don't think UNC signed any other running back on early signing day. At least I don't remember. I was following that pretty close. I always do. Love Northern Colorado. Obviously got my degree from there. So did Kodey. And so we're always going to be big alma maters. We're going to be biased towards them. So whenever we interview players, we're always going to be like, hey, what about UNC? What about UNC? But
and in between the scenes, we also give them plenty of tough love too. But that's because we care.
Well, it's not in between the scenes if it's on air a lot. So there you go there. But I'm looking at UNC's roster, it's the roster because I can't find their depth chart, so that sucks. But there are a couple of running backs on here right now. Julian Eisen, he's a redshirt junior. I believe this is from this year, so just keep that in mind. So he's a redshirt junior right now. He'll probably be on the roster next year. I don't know why he wouldn't be unless he transfers. Drew Wilson, I think, was a grad student this year, but I don't think he has any more years of eligibility. See, COVID screws up with all that, so I think he is moving on. So there you go. Other running backs, there's Jair Moore, probably the biggest running back on here, 6 foot 215. But he is also another redshirt junior, so that'll mean next year he'll be a senior if he does decide to stay. And then the only freshman, at least that I could find, there are 2 freshmen on here, but there's Jacquizz Robertson. He's a freshman this year. Gene Sledge, who is actually the biggest guy. I think he might be more of a fullback, though. He's 6'2", 235. We'll see how that works out. But he is a freshman here as well. Other than that, I don't see any other running backs on this list. I do see 2 fullbacks. One is a freshman, one is a redshirt sophomore, but that doesn't mean anything, So there you go there. I just scrolled past Wilson Clark's picture. So there are 2 freshmen on the roster, but I don't know. I would say, first off, because of the depth chart situation, he'll probably redshirt his first year. I would actually advise him to do that. Like, hey, redshirt, focus on school. Obviously, focus on getting bigger, all the stuff we talked about, right? But do all that stuff. And look, stack up on the easy classes. Kodey and I, we are both very familiar with UNC's academics and whatnot. Me in sports and exercise science. Kodey is more of the business route, right?
I technically graduated in the School of Sport and Exercise Science.
What was your degree?
It was in sports administration, but I'm looking at my degree, and it says Bachelor of Science in Sport and Exercise Science.
Okay, well, maybe not as much diversity as that.
Well, I am rounded in the business aspect, yes.
Okay, so there you go. Either way, whatever major you pick at UNC, the first year you usually have a lot of your easier, what is it called? Is it liberal arts?
Prerequisites.
Well, prerequisites, but yeah.
Or are you talking about like the
LACs?
LACs, yeah. Oh my!
So
stop dragging me back through college. I already made it, but anyways.
Yeah, liberal arts credits. So I'm right. Get as many of those done as possible. That took a really long time to get there, but literally though, get as many of those done as possible. Obviously, pass them. Don't just be failing all of them as you go. I don't know why you would do that, but get those done so that when your time does come to play, you don't have to take as many college classes as you're playing football and practicing and preparing for it. Be smart about it, right? Get used to it and all that stuff. So there you go. Yeah, and then after that, I think it's game. 2 seniors will be graduated from then. You got two guys in front of you that are a year older, I think at that point it's like, all right, it's open competition. But the two guys in front of him are kind of heavier guys, so I don't know if they could catch the way Bryce does. So if I were him, I would continue to work on his receiving ability. Low-key be able to go out and catch passes as a receiver, because that could be big, and that could mean the difference between starting and riding the bench for a couple of years. Because I really, truly think Bryce Vaz here, he could shoot up this roster quickly, if he wanted to and whatnot, and depending on the situation as well. I think he's probably the best offensive weapon. He is the best offensive weapon UNC has recruited maybe since Milo Hall. No disrespect to the guys that interviewed with us that came from JUCOs over in Cali. But Kodey, what do you think about all that? What's your take on this?
I do think that UNC's utilization of the transfer portal is something to keep in mind. I think that they sign JUCO guys a lot more than most other schools here in Colorado. If I have to be completely honest, I think that they utilize it very well, and they've gotten some solid talent out of it. So that's something to keep an eye on. But I think that Bryce Vaz's path to starting for this football team is undeniable. I think that, they're getting a new weight room here soon built. They're trying to get it set up where the stadium has lights to play night games. So, I think that this is going to be as good of a college atmosphere as you could hope for playing here at UNC. And I think that Bryce Vaz is going to put butts in the seats and utilize these new facilities and this new coaching staff to its maximum output here over these next few years as they start to establish their culture, get their guys in, and establish an identity. And, I could see him being a multiple-year guy. I could see him getting on as a redshirt freshman, honestly, on special teams at the bare minimum. Because, he is a dangerous returner, too. This is something to keep in mind. And something that I weighed while giving him his excellent vision. But, that's where I am at with Bryce Vaz. And congratulations on the commitment to UNC. Bo Gares, as our old coworker Cade would say. But hopefully Bryce can turn it into Go Bears as we look to pick up some more wins in the Vaz era. What? Simon, with all that being said, I think is it around that time of the episode to congratulate everyone for making the list and begin an outro?
Yeah. Do you mind? I'll go ahead and do it because I'm going to take initiative. But just so
Good
that
for
you
you.
know, at number 5 is TCA's Cade Palmer. At number 4, we have Valor Christian's Gavin Sawchuk. At number 3, we have Fort Morgan's very own Frank Ortega. At number 2, we have Centauri's Mason Quanch. And at number 1, we have Legends and now UNC's Bryce Vaz. So there you go. Congrats to all these guys. Honestly, look, Colorado has a lot of good running backs. This is probably the list that I may have spent the most time on. Not just like recently, obviously, but I've definitely been looking at a lot of these names probably since last year. And I'll probably do the same starting for next year's list as well. Well, I actually already have, so too late there. I already did it. But we put in a lot of work. This isn't easy. Grading these guys, getting these categories together, cross-grading as well, because me and Kodey obviously have different grades and definitions, and that's just how we are. We have different points of views of football. That's how you get this thing done. But it's hard, doing these breakdowns, especially for running back and taking in fact, level of competition, how fast are they really, how strong are they really, all that great stuff. But truly, Colorado has a lot of great running backs, backs who arguably face the most complicated weather in the entire country. They'll play in the snow, rain, sun, whatever. But these guys are built different regardless, so just keep that in mind. But regardless, congrats to all these guys. And, if you want to go ahead and take a look at our other top 5s, you are welcome to. We are almost done with this series. I believe we only have edge rushers, quarterbacks, and
that's it.
Wildcat.
Wildcat.
Yeah, Wildcat, quarterbacks, athletes. That's probably going to be a little bit more of a messier episode, but that too. So, tune in for that in that order as well. So that will be done by the end of January with that. So that'll be super exciting. But if you want to know when those drops, Go ahead and follow us on social media. That's at Playmakers Corner, on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok as well. Also follow our YouTube channel. We are dropping some content there, every now and then. And I'm going to go ahead and say this because I think this is okay, but follow us on Twitch at Playmakers Corner. We're going to be doing some live streams there. Look, we understand there's going to be a lot of requests for film breakdowns. We already have more than we did last year, and, we are going to a couple events as well. Team Full Gorilla tryouts, Ducks tryouts, by the way, and we're going to talk about training facilities. We're going to talk about a bunch of things, honestly, things that will probably work better if we were more in a, relaxed setting. And so we're going to probably live stream those. And then that way we could interact with you, the fans. So if you have questions in real time, we'll talk to you and whatnot, and we'll give you advice. We'll do some live breakdowns as well, so you can kind of see our raw process here, see see where our thoughts are at and whatnot. And so I'm just going to go ahead and advertise that. And then obviously, if you do miss one of our streams, we're going to upload all of our streams to our YouTube channel. So there you go. You might as well subscribe to both. You might as well subscribe to both. I don't know if we'll be posting them as episodes on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and whatnot. But regardless, you should still give us a good rating on those. I know on Spotify you could do that now. On Apple Podcasts, go ahead and write us something nice. We appreciate those. We'll probably do a reading of those on a live stream. That'd be a really fun thing to do as well. So there you go. Kodey, am I missing anything?
Nope. Just thank you all for the support. Thank you for the people who do recognize how much work we put in. And we've watched probably more football in this past year and a half than a lot of people who quote unquote know what they're talking about have watched in their entire lives. So put some respect on our name if you haven't. If you already have, thank you. And catch you on the next episode.